Have you ever stopped to think if Emily, the iconic corpse bride, could be more than just a tormented spirit? What if I told you there's a theory that directly links Emily to Victoria, not as mere strangers but as blood sisters? Yes, this theory suggests that Emily's tragedy may be deeply intertwined with the Everglot family's past, leading to their downfall and Victoria's arranged marriage. Today we're going to explore this possibility and uncover if there are hidden clues that prove this shocking connection between the two. Get ready because the story might be far more complex than it seems. The story of Corpse Bride has deep and intriguing roots inspired by a 19th century Russian Jewish tale. This connection to the past is crucial to understanding the film's setting, which reflects customs and practices of that time, very different from what we are used to seeing today. Now, you may have wondered, why is the Everglot family so bankrupt? The movie doesn't reveal many details about the cause of their financial decline, which can leave many viewers curious. What we do know is that, in the plot, the Everglots plan to marry their daughter, Victoria, to Victor, a young nobleman with great wealth. Arranged marriages were common in those days, even among people who didn't know each other well. This often happened as a strategy to maintain financial stability, especially when the family's situation was in decline. While Victor's family, though wealthy, didn't have high social status, the Everglots were known for their prestige but were in complete financial ruin. This social contrast is a central point in the film. The union between Victor and Victoria is actually a strategic exchange between the two families, each seeking something the other possessed. Although the film hints at the nature of the alliance between the families, it doesn't explain how the Everglot family lost their fortune. And this is where a fascinating theory comes into play. The idea that the true cause of the Everglots' bankruptcy may be linked to Emily. Yes, the Emily we know in the story was actually part of the Everglot family. Imagine the impact of this theory. Emily, a central character in the plot, might have been responsible for causing her own family's downfall. This adds an intriguing layer to the story, suggesting that the connection between Emily and the Everglots goes far beyond what we see on the surface. When Emily's tragic story is revealed, we learn that she was known for her incredible beauty and had fallen madly in love with a man. However, Emily's family did not approve of this romance, and the two decided to run away together, far from the disapproving eyes of her relatives. But Emily, young and naive, took with her all the family's jewels and riches, gold, precious stones, everything of value. What she didn't know was that the man she loved so much was deceiving her. He stole everything she had and left her to die right there without mercy. And the context of this story, only two families are mentioned as truly wealthy in the town, the Van Dorts and the Everglots. If Emily were part of the Van Dorts, Victor would have immediately recognized this connection. It would have been his own family after all. But he shows no recognition, leading us to a logical conclusion. Emily could only have been an Everglot. As this revelation would explain the steep decline of the Everglot fortune. By taking nearly all of the family's wealth with her, Emily left a gaping hole in the Everglots' finances, leaving them with little more than enough to cover the basics: food, clothing, and a roof over their heads. This financial blow could have been the cause of the decline that led them to approach the Van Dorts in search of a financial alliance through Victoria's marriage. And since the film doesn't specify exactly when Emily was murdered, she could belong to any generation of the Everglot family. She could be a sister to one of Victoria's parents, or perhaps even her older sister. This possibility adds an even darker and more complex layer to the story, connecting Emily and Victoria's fates in a tragic and profound way. As the theory gains traction by suggesting that Emily is in fact Victoria's sister. After all, if Emily took the family's wealth when she ran off with the man she loved, it would have been difficult for the Everglots to maintain their lifestyle for many years. A fortune hit that hard likely wouldn't sustain the upkeep of a mansion and all the social appearances for long. Therefore, the theory points out that the family's bankruptcy is relatively recent, reinforcing the idea that Emily and Victoria are sisters. Moreover, there's an intriguing physical resemblance between the two. Both have a rounded face and a delicate, almost identical nose, suggesting a family connection that goes beyond blood, a near supernatural bond. Another detail that supports this theory is Emily's absence from the family portrait. She's not mentioned at any point by the Everglots, and her face doesn't appear in any paintings on the mansion walls. This could be explained by the fact that Emily, after running away and committing the unforgivable act of taking the family's fortune with her, became a stain of dishonor on the Everglots' prestige. In those times, a woman being seen alone with a man was already considered scandalous. Imagine running away with someone without being married and taking all the family's money. It would be an unacceptable disgrace by the social standards of the time. It's very possible that Emily's parents decided to completely erase her existence, covering up the scandal and pretending she never existed. This kind of reaction was quite common at the time, especially in families that valued their social status so highly. The theory suggests that they might even believe Emily is still alive, living a happy life somewhere far away with her husband, completely unaware of the terrible truth of her death. Another detail that could further strengthen the theory that Emily is Victoria's sister is the fact that Emily knew how to play the piano, a common skill among young women of the upper class. Even with all the restrictions and behaviors imposed on women at the time, it was expected that girls born into wealth would be educated in the arts, and the piano was often associated with this refined education. Victoria, also from an upper-class family, likely would have followed the same path, but her mother never allowed her to go near the piano. The reason? A deep and silent fear that Victoria, like Emily, might get lost in romantic daydreams and run off with some man, repeating her sister's tragic fate. This detail suggests that Victoria's mother was determined to prevent Emily's story from repeating itself. The fact that Victoria doesn't recognize Emily can be explained by the time separating them. Perhaps Victoria was born years or even months after Emily's death, or maybe she was still too young to remember her sister. This gap in time and the decision to erase Emily's existence from the family history explain why Victoria has no idea who Emily is, despite their lives being so deeply intertwined. Moreover, Emily's parents didn't recognize the man who killed her because he was never introduced to the family. After all, he was Emily's forbidden love, a secret she kept until the end. This adds a layer of mystery and tragedy to the story, showing how Emily's fate was marked by secrets, shame, and a desperate search for love. Although the theory that Emily is Victoria's sister has its merits, there are some points that cast doubt on it. One major issue is that even if Emily's case was hushed up, Victoria would likely have heard about the sister who ran off with a man. No matter how hard her parents tried to cover up the story, something like that would hardly go unnoticed, especially in a family so concerned with reputation and status. Additionally, Emily might have known about a younger sister, even if she hadn't met her personally. Another important detail is Emily's state of decomposition. While the film doesn't specify how long it's been since her death, a scene involving a character who has been dead for 15 years and still has flesh on their bones suggests that Emily's death was more recent. Perhaps something between 2 and 10 years, considering she already shows larvae and an almost skeletal arm. If that's the case, her death's tragedy would still be fresh in the memory of her family and society. It's also worth noting that there's a town crier who loudly proclaims the news for everyone to hear. With such information dissemination, it would be nearly impossible for no one to know Emily's story. The idea that such a significant event could have been completely forgotten or ignored seems unlikely, especially in such a small community. Another crucial point weakening the theory is that the man who killed Emily is the same one who later tries to marry Victoria. If Emily were truly part of the Everglot family, it would be an absurd risk for him to try deceiving the same family again. Victoria's parents would have recognized the Lord in some way, remembering him as the man who ruined their lives by stealing their daughter and their wealth. Furthermore, the film implies that the Lord is new in town, suggesting that he moves from place to place, exploiting and robbing wealthy families without risking being recognized. A revealing detail is that Emily's parents did not support her relationship with the Lord because they perceived his wickedness from the start. Emily even introduced him to her parents, which means they were aware of his presence and intentions. Additionally, everything indicates that Emily wasn't from the same town as Victoria. When she returns to the land of the living, none of the townspeople recognize her, and she doesn't recognize Victoria's mansion when she goes to fetch Victor. If she were truly part of the Everglot family, she would certainly have some familiarity with the surroundings and the house where Victoria lives. As this lack of recognition and familiarity suggests that Emily might be from a completely different town. Considering that Victor walked for a while before reaching the forest, where he placed the ring on Emily's finger, it's possible that he ventured quite far from the city, entering a more isolated area. This reinforces the idea that Emily doesn't belong to the community where the Everglots live. Finally, the Lord in question appears to be an opportunist who travels from town to town, exploiting and robbing wealthy families. If he knew he was dealing with the same family he had previously deceived, he likely wouldn't have risked exposure. This sequence of events makes the theory that Emily is Victoria's sister less plausible. So, what do you think? Is Emily really Victoria's sister, or does this theory not hold up? It's fascinating how these stories can have so many layers, mysteries, and possibilities. In any case, the world of Corpse Bride continues to intrigue us and leave us with many unanswered questions. Ati sinto steti gendeiro sari kumu masaityar.